I don't appreciate, nor do I agree, when rabbinic leadership or spiritual leaders profess to know exactly why various things or consequences or events are transpiring in this world. In fact, I am dead right against it. I think it's the wrong approach. Lo navi ani velo ben navi. We were not put in this earth to prophesize if we are not prophets. And therefore, obviously, we have to go through investigation and understanding and certainly introspect on various events that occur around us, in our lives, and in our society. But we don't necessarily have to come up with the answer, or we don't have to profess to society what exactly they have to do, right or wrong, in order to change or respond to the events that transpire around us. However, sometimes there are certain behaviors and certain manifestations that are so blatantly obvious that the message becomes so transparent and should be so clear to us with regards to our reaction, or at the very least with regards to our introspection. And I think that this is the case with regards to the time that we live in now, to the various events that have been taking place, and the junctures in which we find ourselves with regards to our religious or Jewish community at large, not only in the land of Israel, but in the world at large. In this week's Parsha, certainly there is room for understanding introspect, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Noach that with regards to the blatant, chaotic, and inappropriate, promiscuous behavior that takes place throughout society and would ultimately cause the destruction of the entire world. Why is it? And the Torah says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Noach, "Vatishachet haaretz lefnei ha'elohim, vatimalei haaretz Hamas. Vatishachet haaretz lifnei ha'elohim." The land became destructive in front of God, and the world was filled with Hamas. Hamas classically is translated, as we know, Rashi, as gezel, geneva, thievery, pillaging. But I saw a remarkable insight in the Rashar Hirsch, Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, with regards to what exactly does or do these words mean? What happened to the world that led to its destruction? And says the Rashar Hirsch as follows: the word vatishachet, lehashchit, shichet, is destruction, but it's a specific type of destruction. It's what he calls kilkul, likalkel. Likalkel is something that slowly happens, something that slowly transpires and causes rotting. It causes destruction. It wasn't one sudden swoop of a destroyed world, but rather slowly but surely, people, through their behaviors, through their promiscuity, and by convincing themselves that what they had done was correct, slowly but surely the world behaved in a fashion that was just unacceptable to God, to the extent that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol decided that it had to be destroyed. And sure enough, he says that the idea of shichet can also come shin chet taf from the word shochad, shin chet dalid. Shochad is bribery. When a person offers bribery, they do not necessarily see that the consequences of what they're offering are obviously fatal or completely improper, immoral, devalued. But slowly but surely, as a result of that shochad, there can be shichet. There is destruction, there is immoral behavior, and ultimately things within their foundations become destroyed. Rashar Hirsch explains also that the word shichet is very similar to shin chet taf, to the word shin chet tet. Shochet, lishchot, to completely slaughter. And says Rashar Hirsch that when a person slaughters an animal or a bird, he is disconnecting the pipes that lead to its esophagus, that gives it air to be able to breathe. And what he's doing essentially is obstructing breath, obstructing air, obstructing the ability to breathe, the ability to expand, the ability to enhance one's existence. That is cut off. And so to shichet is this process of cutting off, of obstructing one's breath, of destroying one's ability to grow, to prosper, and to value that which the world has to offer. And sure enough, says the Rashar Hirsch as follows. Hamas is compared to the pasuk in Eov. Yachmos ka gefen bisro. Gefen, the vineyard, the grapes. Boser is the unripened fruit. Chamas, yachmos, is used with regards or in the context of something that is not ripe, that cannot ripen, that slowly rots because it cannot develop into a fruit. Oseh chamas lepri. HaChamas eino naaseh bevat achat ela ma'at ma'at. Chamas is something that transpires. It is procedural. It is not sudden, but rather it's something that develops as a result of rotten behavior. Vatishachet haaretz lifnei ha'elohim vatimalei haaretz chamas, says the Rasha Hirsch, ba hashchata ruchanit, a spiritual rotting, a spiritual slow transgression and progression of destruction. Chataim shehachevra ha'ezrachit, unbelievable. Eina chosheshet lehem. If I didn't see it, I wouldn't believe it. Says Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch, sins that society dictate and they don't necessarily recognize are destructive or obliterating. Anashim svurim, intelligent people, she'af be'et she'anor mufkar, that are willing to place their children to hefker at the grace of society, at the grace of danger. Chayei hanisuin rekuvim, slowly but surely marriages become or rot away and become no longer strong. They weaken at their very core. Yifrechu adayin ha'ta'asiyah v'hameschar, and yet the infrastructure economically continues to produce, and that is why they do not recognize that their behaviors are improper. Ve'asakim yosifu lidneel b'yosher, and perhaps they even conduct some of their businesses properly. Ach benishchat haaretz lifnei ha'elohim atzmo, but slowly but surely the land becomes destroyed. Lifnei ha'elohim, in front of God. What does it mean in front of God? And the Rashar Hirsch places this in parentheses. When corruption, venality, is lifnei ha'elohim, when it is done in the name of God. When minyanim and mass prayer groups are conducted, regardless of the dangers that they certainly can produce, in the name of God, lifnei ha'elohim. When underground weddings are conducted for the mitzvah of nisuin, the mitzvah of zugiyut, producing families, lifnei ha'elohim, in the name of God. And when mass protests are organized with the hurling of bottles and stones and rocks at those who attempt to protect us, or at the very least have orders to do so. Obscenities are cast their ways, and burning of masks and mass protests openly, defiling that which society expects from us, all for the sake of opening yeshivot, of having the mass study of Torah, spirituality, religiosity, lifnei ha'elohim, in the name of God. When this happens, I quote you verbatim, says Rav Hirsch, Lo yo'ilu kol chukei ha'chevra u'mosdoteha la'atzil et ha'chevra me'ibadon. All of these tasks and all of that which society dictates and all of the good cause And all of that which we do in the name of God will not help to save society from itself. Haaretz lo timalei af pam begezel gamur. The land will not be filled in one false swoop with thievery. Shareyesh lechevra et hachok haplili, because there are laws that are instituted and that remain instated within our systems. Aval haChamas. What is Hamas? When the land fills with Hamas, asiyat ra lezolat beorma. Hamas means behaving improperly, with deceit, with conniving, without openly doing so, without admitting and understanding that someone is doing something that is improper. There continue to be the exploits masked and hooded in the name of self-righteousness and in the name of religious impropriety. That is Hamas, and that is what calls Kishichet Amcha, Hashchatat Haaretz, the destruction. And so I ask, when we look around us, one does not need to be a prophet. One does not need even necessarily to be spiritually religious or intact to wonder, where is the consciousness? Where is the conscience of those who blatantly, Lifnei HaElohim, in the name of God, desecrate law, desecrate the value of life, are willing to sacrifice others for the sake of what they believe is self-righteousness? All Noach was told in this week's Parsha to do was to step up and to ask, is this really what God wants? And I believe that the more people do this, they will simply understand that the message of Corona is really not that complex. From a religious and a spiritual perspective and framework, it really requires from all of us to ask, is this really what God wants? Unfortunately, I believe that large segments of our Jewish population are far from not only arriving at the answer, but at the very least, from pondering the question. I hope, b'mehera yavo, that day will come. We will come to a recognition and a common understanding of what God truly expects from us. Shabbat Shalom.